When it comes to relocation, sports leagues and team owners love to shift the blame from themselves onto the cities losing their franchises and ultimately the fans of that town. The fans didn't love the team enough. They didn't support the team enough financially to keep it around. This is leveraged as a talking point by the city benefiting from the sports team relocation almost as a way to absolve them of their sins. Well, it's not our fault that city is losing its sports franchise. They could have done more in this ordeal. But the fan bases in St. Louis, Seattle, Arizona, San Diego, Oakland, and all of those places that have lost teams before weren't allowed to do more. The passion and sometimes anger they express isn't directed at Los Angeles, Oklahoma City, Utah, Los Angeles again, or Las Vegas. It is directed at those in charge who allowed the situation to unfold as it did. And it's also a warning to those cities involved that, hey, look at how this league and this ownership group did us dirty, because it's only a matter of time before it happens to you too. Of course, that isn't the narrative fans in new towns are interested in hearing. Usually the owner will come in, give a really sad sob story about how they couldn't make it work in the old city. They then go on to explain how it's going to work differently in the new city, and then they give a bunch of generic platitudes about excitement and community that ultimately mean nothing. And those not smart enough to know any better eat it up faster than the Hawaiian pizza at any Shakey's Pizza buffet ever in like the history of the world. Seriously, you get one of those an hour and it's gone in like 30 seconds. You're basically left with Supreme and mushroom, but I digress. The issue that arises here is that you then get two groups of fans clashing, or at least the illusion of two groups of fans clashing. You have the city losing their team and you have the city gaining a franchise, and that they're almost always pitted against one another, even if that's not necessarily true. It's the narrative that sports leagues and commissioners want, however. If enough folks in a city receiving a relocated sports franchise are indoctrinated by whatever bumbling owner that shows up on their doorstep, the majority will eventually refuse to listen to anything coming from the city losing their team. And then you just get this butting of heads. On one side, you have the town losing its franchise, and they want to warn the new city about the shadiness of that ownership group, or just how they were done dirty by the league taking the team away from them. And then on the other side, you just have the new city that doesn't want to hear anything. They stick their fingers in their ears and go la 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 la. That la 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 usually manifests itself in one of two ways. The first is that they will immediately start picking apart the old cities as a justification to them losing their team. We'll get to that more in a bit. The second thing that happens in these situations is that the city receiving a relocated franchise will simply dismiss anything the old town says as jealousy. Oh, Oakland, Seattle, whoever else, they are just jealous of us. They just need to stop being so jelly. If your argument in any situation ever is that someone is jealous of you, or that it's just simply jealousy, a case of jealousy, well, you probably don't have much of a leg to stand on. That is really nothing more than a crutch for feeble-minded fools who don't want to acknowledge certain truths. Seriously, the only time I ever want to hear the word jealousy come out of anyone's mouth is when it's sung by the Gin Blossoms. Hey, jealousy. Hey, jealousy. When people aren't stammering on and on about jealousy, they're usually buying into weird narratives, false narratives, that are being sold by team owners and leagues, which usually focus on putting down the town that's lost its team or is in the process of losing its team. Let's not forget how sports fans in Los Angeles jumped all over Stan Kroenke's comments about how St. Louis wasn't an economically viable destination for an NFL franchise. That was a lie, but one so many people were happy to parrot while completely ignoring the fact that the same franchise had betrayed them 2 decades earlier. Let's be totally honest here, the only difference between St. Louis and Los Angeles from a NFL economic standpoint is that more away fans are willing to travel to Southern California than St. Louis to watch their team play. That's it. That's the key differentiator between the two cities, but you know what? I don't want to get sidetracked on that. Another odd example of this is now playing out in the triangle saga between Oakland, Las Vegas, and Sacramento surrounding the Athletics. Early on in this process, some people in Vegas were really quick to latch on to the narrative about Oakland as a city, all of the shortcomings Oakland has. and loved citing these as reason why it deserved to lose the team. In many ways, this ended up taking on the form of Las Vegas versus Oakland, these two fan bases going up against one another. In reality, though, that was never ever the case. Then Sacramento interjected itself into this whole mix, and suddenly out of nowhere, Sacramentans started crapping on Oakland using the same misinformed, misguided talking points that those in Las Vegas had used against Oakland when that was all going down. That's wild, that's crazy. Jim Rome glossed Sacramento as Sacramento back in the day, and we as a city spent years trying to fight back getting rid of that moniker. We didn't want to be known as Sacramento, but it kinda stuck there for a while. For us to start acting as if we are better than any other town in America is preposterous. But to do so using the same talking points Las Vegas used against Oakland, and that much of America uses against California as a whole, I mean, that just takes the freaking cake here.
Forever, ever, ever there.
Not that cake, but shout out to a Sacramento legend. Anyway, that brings me to what happened this past weekend when the Last Dive Bar and the Oakland 68s took the Sell the Team movement, Oakland Sell the Team movement, to Sacramento for a Rivercats home game. There was a great quote from Rob Roberts here. He was interviewed by Matt George of ABC 10, and he just said something that really needs to be highlighted as it relates to sports team relocations in general, because it's a point not made enough. So here's the quote.
This is not at all about Oakland versus Sacramento. This is not Oakland versus Las Vegas. Nothing like that. This is not a hostile situation at all. That's what the misconception is. We're here to show how good of fans we are, how good the culture is, trying to show who we are and what we're fighting for.
There's a link to the entire video in the description of this video should you want to check it out and learn more about what happened in Sacramento. But I really want to focus on this quote here because it resonated with me so much, and it really highlights exactly why sports leagues and sports owners want to drive a wedge in between these cities involved in a potential relocation. If you do not know those who are losing their team or the real reason why that team is moving, it is easy to foster this us versus them mentality. But when they meet and interact, they get to understand each other's perspectives. They understand the truth of the situation. Well, they tend to find out they aren't all of that different, and it's the one thing that scares leagues and owners the most. In the world of sports, we are all just fans, and no fan, at least no rational fan, should want to get dicked around by a team owner who doesn't have the team's best interests at heart. Now, there will always be some exceptions to this. Some fans are just shitty fans. Some fan bases are just shitty fan bases. Auburn and Philadelphia spring to my mind. Sorry, not sorry. Even then though, I detest by and large the Philadelphia and Auburn fan bases, but I can admit there are fans there that I can talk to, that I like, that I respect. There are plenty of folks with Auburn and Philadelphia who get it. They are just in the minority, unfortunately. At the end of the day, I can understand why any city in America wants to get its hands on a professional sports team. I totally understand that, but the how you are getting that team, it really, really matters. And if you don't talk to and engage the fan base losing that franchise to get the full story, if you're focused on calling them jealous or obsess over faults that city has, well, you best check yourself forced you wreck yourself, because you are in for a pretty bad time. These owners and teams almost always do the same thing down the road in their new city. So much for that excitement and community. The Oklahoma City Thunder just strong-armed that city and the voters down there into getting a public arena with particularly not that favorable of terms. The Tennessee Titans have been doing the same stadium song and dance in recent times that they did down in Houston decades earlier. 20 to 30 years down the track, the shoe almost always ends up on the other foot. The city receiving a relocating franchise ends up facing a fight to keep them. Yet people want to ignore those warnings. They think they are different or special or whatever the case may be, but they are not and never have been. Regardless of if the A's end up in Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Nashville, Portland, anywhere on this planet, the town that gets the team will face the same scenario Oakland has dealt with in the present, simply just 2 decades later. And what the hell Sacramento is doing here, it's just confusing. Our city is nothing more than Buffalo or Dunedin. It's a temporary stopover for an MLB franchise on its way to go somewhere else. But congrats on another season of owning the Sacramento Kings without a playoff series victory, Vivek. You are a very good owner. The last thing I really want to stress here is that I am not claiming sports team relocation should not happen. All I am saying, all I am championing here is that the cities facing relocation should be given a legitimate shot at retaining their beloved franchise. This is not a burdensome request, by the way. Simply give communities a chance to find a new ownership group that meets whatever asking price you set for the team. Give them a chance to come up with a workable stadium solution, set a time frame, let them meet your goals or your expectations here. That is all any of the cities that lost their franchises ever wanted, a fair shot. Instead, those fan bases were dismissed and used nothing more than a propaganda piece to make fans in the new city feel better about themselves. Don't take that bait though. Focus on why the team is relocating. Focus on how the ownership group created a situation that was that untenable. Because chances are, if you study that and you look at that, well, you're going to realize that your city is going to find itself in the exact same situation one day. Thank you for watching this video. To learn more about how the early 1990s A's really botched the opportunity to become a dynasty, video upper right hand corner of your screen is the place to go. And to see the wild story of how the Kings accidentally became the most exciting team in basketball in the 2000s, video lower right hand corner of your screen. Until next time, I am Cheyenne Hollis. This is the Touchback. Hashtag sell the team, hashtag sell the Kings, and hashtag take it out to the 25.